This time I'd like to call this meeting to order. Madam Clerk, roll call.
Roll call. Mr. Collins.
Here.
Mr. Samuels.
Here.
Mr. Woodward.
Here.
Vice President Robertson.
Here.
Councilman Jewell. Ms. Squire.
Here.
Ms. Trammell. Here. Mr. Tyler.
Here.
And President Graziano.
Here.
We have a phone.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. At this time, I am honored to present our mayor, who is going to present to us the budget for the coming 2 years. As everybody knows, this is a very difficult economic time for not just our citizens, but for our city as well, and all cities throughout the country. And I know that the mayor has put much time and effort into this budget. And Mr. Mayor, before I go.
Thank you so much, Madam President and Vice President, and members of council, and to the citizens of Richmond. I'm happy today to present to you my first biennial fiscal plan as mayor of the city of Richmond. And I want to thank the citizens again of Richmond for sending me here to serve. This is a task that I do not take lightly, and I eagerly embrace the challenges that are before us. And believe me, this is a challenging task this year. While I'm honored and humbled to have the responsibility of providing leadership to the city of Richmond, it must be noted that these are not ordinary times. We're not inoculated from a recession, and we, like our local and national counterparts, are facing some challenges like we have never seen before. We are all serving in the same economic distress, and I need not tell you that this is the worst economic downturn in 75 years. It's a time when working Americans are facing massive layoffs and jobs are disappearing. Fewer homes are being sold in many jurisdictions, are seeing tent cities spring up to house a growing homeless population. Employment offices are flooded, businesses are closing, and there have been massive losses in the stock market. More Americans are making tough choices and foregoing insurance premiums and educational savings plans just so that they can meet their everyday normal costs. This is a time that affects everyone that is present here today. Fortunately, we have aligned our election terms so that we all have 4 years to work together on these matters, and it's our hope that the lean times will turn into prosperous times. As the budget cycle goes, there's always the opportunity for us to make tough decisions, and I dare say that these extraordinary times are even calling upon us to make tougher choices and to tighten our belts more than we have ever had to do before. And so I want to use just 3 driving principles that have framed the proposal today. The first is that a lagging economy requires sacrifices on everybody's part. That's number one. All of us have got to recognize that all of us will have to make sacrifices. The second thing is that we must strive to preserve and protect the core city services. We've got to be very mindful of the least and the left out, those who are most vulnerable in society. And in these difficult times, we've got to make sure that they're held harmless. And we've got to prepare for the future and work in anticipation for opportunities that will come. Earlier this week, I had the opportunity to go to Washington, and I met with Senator Webb and Senator Warner and Congressman Scott and Congressman Cantor, and went by and talked to the staff at Speaker Pelosi's office, even the White House Office on Intergovernmental Affairs. And the message that I carried was that Richmond is doing its part, and we're looking for partners to support us on every level. And we're going to continue to reach out to find different ways and different revenue streams and to effectively lobby our counterparts on the federal level to see what help they will be able to give us. Now, during this preparation of the budget, we've worked in a collaborative fashion, not only externally but internally. Department heads have exercised their discretion and judgment to help ensure that we put forth the best plan possible. And what we have to share with you today is done in as transparent a fashion as possible. And this budget is going to be available online beginning next week. I don't know whether that's ever been done before. It may be a first, may not, but I'm proud. Our theme for the next 2 years is making efficient decisions in challenging economic times. We've got to work collaboratively to meet the task at hand, and this fiscal plan represents a comprehensive spending strategy in line with current revenue projections. This is an opportunity to put forth this basic principle to hold the rainy day reserve fund harmless. And so I want to reiterate that we will not dip into the rainy day fund during this fiscal downturn. The budget is a 2-year plan. However, my remarks basically will deal with the first year. And with so many moving pieces on the horizon, we've got to look to the future while we focus on the present. We're monitoring our revenues closely, and we're likely to have an update for your deliberative use in the next month. The state budget will be adopted on April 8th after the General Assembly's reconvened session, and at that point we'll have closure on all of the revenues that we're looking forward to using in our budget. Fiscal year 2009-2010 is to be a $629.6 million budget. Now, those of you who are familiar with the budget know that this is a decrease from the current fiscal year. This is a budget that will take us down from the current fiscal year approximately 4.3%. And the second year reflects a slight growth, but it's still a decrease from the current budget plan. General fund revenues are projected at levels sufficient to fund the operating budget, once again, without dipping into the reserves. The good news is that this budget includes no increase in tax rate. It has been balanced through spending reductions and realignments, the use of innovative service delivery, and the implementation of new revenue sources. The city's chief administrative office and department heads have turned over many rocks and looked at creative ways to deal with these hard times. Now, there can be no sugarcoating. This is a lean year. This is going to be a tough year. In this budget, everybody has to give something up, not just city council, but the mayor as well. I've had to put off some of the things that I wanted to do, such as the vacant positions that we have. We will not be able to move as fast as I would like to move forward on the downtown master plan. And we'll also have to slow down our efforts to launch additional economic and redevelopment programs for the city. We've worked to protect core services and to not be disproportionately burdensome in any one area. Recognizing the hard choices we face, the following guidelines were used during the budget plan. We had to prioritize, and we sought to minimize the impact to the children. The superintendent is here in the audience, and we have held the educational system to a 4% reduction. Now, that's less than the overall revenue loss the city will experience at a time when real estate tax revenues are expected to be down by almost 9%. There are many police and firemen here, and the reduction to those budgets will be 5%. We believe that this is a good spending plan because what we've tried to do is protect jobs and to make sure that there are no decreases in sworn officers and no decreases in instructional staffs in the school system. We had to prioritize, and so we want to make wise investments for future savings. And so we're looking at things in city government that can cause us to have some dollar efficiencies, such as investing in voice over internet protocol, which will generate long-term savings and allow us not to have so many phone lines. That's just an example of many of the things that we can do to meet our financial goals. We have to strive for the least impact on citizens, and any service reductions or revenue impacts. There will be few reductions in services and no increases in the city's real estate tax rate. We want to protect those citizens of the city who are the most vulnerable, and to that end, public health services will see level funding, and social services will see a reduction at about the reduction rate on par with police and fire. Now, I want to point out that we have to take a hard look at how we fund outside agencies. In some cases, we have scaled back city support from our non-departmental agencies. and my budget is based on assessing service charges for nonprofit agencies that are otherwise not taxed. Now, I know that this is different, but I pledge to work with these groups and with City Council to find an appropriate level of charges to assess. But I believe that all of us have got to pay a portion of the freight that is required for living in a great city, and that's the price we pay in a civilized society. Next, we've got to maintain and improve the city's fiscal health. This budget is based on generating revenues without dipping into the city's reserve. And so we want to use sustainable cuts that can provide savings in future years. Cuts are proposed to the amount of printing that is being done, along with the reduction in paper purchases. Desktop printers are going to be eliminated, and other efficiencies will be implemented. These may be difficult decisions that are being made, but they're necessary. One-time cuts are going to be made so that we can, in the short run, be able to realize those efficiencies. And as a one-time measure, department heads are being asked to constrain spending for training, travel, and conferences, except as necessary for licensure and mandated training. We are approaching the budget on a system-wide level. For example, we're taking steps to work jointly with schools to review areas where services can be provided more efficiently. We want to use performance-based measures in budget decisions, and we've done that with the non-departmental agencies, and we look forward to doing that with all agencies in the future. We will continue to encourage efficiencies and economies. All departments are being encouraged to continue their efforts at economizing, including using the city's own award-winning tap water instead of bottled water. You didn't find that funny. To use innovative approaches to current service provision, the Public Works Department plans to purchase new larger garbage collection trucks for certain routes to maximize garbage collection, making fewer trips and being able to hold more. There are new revenue streams where appropriate. We're proposing a new tipping fee at the city's landfill that will be in line with the fees charged at the public landfills in Henrico and Hanover, as well as the private facilities in Charles City County. The city has positioned itself well to soften the impact on services on existing employees' positions at this time. Indeed, I want to acknowledge that the city has been a good financial steward, and for that reason we enjoy a very strong investment-grade bond rating from all three major credit rating agencies. This puts us in a position to pursue the AAA bond rating that I want us to pursue during these lean times. We're proposing a capital improvement plan for 2010 through 2014 that has taken the poor economy as well as capital needs into consideration. The proposed decisions for the capital plan is based on the advice of our financial advisors who have advised us to weather the current fiscal storm while positioning ourselves for the future through good financial stewardship. The capital improvement plan proposed for the next 5 years is a reduction of $15.2 million from the previously approved plan. However, during the next 4 years, the CIP begins to ramp up with additional spending, with a total plan of $401.9 million. The traditional sources of revenue continue to fund the proposed capital plan. The 2010 funding plan includes $58.1 million in debt-related revenue, $9.4 million in other sources, including federal and state pass-through dollars, and the 5-year total reflects proposed debt-related funding of $388.1 million and $13.8 million in other funding sources. The plan includes in the first year $18.7 million in planning and construction for new and renovated schools, $5.4 million to continue making our schools accessible to disabled students and others, $4.2 million in maintenance for for City Hall, much of which will help contain the building's operating costs, $10 million in maintenance for other city-owned buildings, including libraries and courts, $15.8 million in infrastructure improvements to the city's roads, bridges, streetlights, sidewalks, and curbs and ramps, $3.7 million in economic and neighborhood development projects, $1.9 million in park improvements, $3.6 million to begin the implementation of the city's downtown master plan, and $2 million to update the city's computerized financial systems, which is long, long overdue. And perhaps most long overdue is $2.2 million to begin program planning and architectural drawings for a new city jail. We're also closely monitoring the federal stimulus funds to see how they will best supplement the proposed capital improvement plan that we put forth today. And like all jurisdictions, we have a long list of important needs that are waiting to be funded. In the utilities department, we are proposing a storm water fee to generate the funding needed with new water quality regulations. These funds will be used to improve water quality and alleviate flooding. Gas rates will increase by 3% after no increases over the last 2 years. In part, this increase reflects new federal regulations for distribution integrity management, which requires that we replace our old infrastructure. Water rates will increase by approximately 6% overall. However, the average residential property owner will only see a 1% increase. This reflects an increase in chemical costs and federally required capital spending. Wastewater fees will increase 5.5% as a result of the city's consent agreement with the state's Department of Environmental Quality dealing with our CSO program. Now, in conclusion, to be sure, this is a lean year. However, our strengths have prepared us for this moment. Let's not forget that we have continuously been ranked as one of the best metropolitan areas for businesses and careers. And even in these tough economic times, we're ranked as the 4th best city to find a job. We continue to receive visiting delegations. Just this week, we received a delegation from another part of the country. They come to us to look to us to see the model that we have set. And we've been recently recognized for other innovative strategies in policing and information technology. I know that we can continue to perform during these tough economic times, and I look forward to working with the members of council. I look forward to working with the members of our staff and administration to sustain Richmond's reputation as a great city to live in and a great city to do business in. I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge all of the persons who worked very hard to put this fiscal plan together. And I want to acknowledge the members of our staff and members of the administration who really went the extra mile to identify areas that can be cut while making the promise to continue providing as high a level of service as possible. This is a prudent and balanced plan, and I want to express my sincere appreciation to all of our department managers for their dedication and cooperation. I also have to signal out the budget staff that has worked extremely hard. Rayford Harris and his team have just done a wonderful job. The print shop that got this done in a short amount of time, and we want to thank all of those who helped us get this document to you today. So again, I present you this plan in the spirit of communication, cooperation, and collaboration. This budget proposal is not the end of discussion, but it's the beginning of a dialogue. And if you have other ideas, please let me know, and let's work together to develop the best plan for the city that you love, the city that I love. And let's work together to solve the tough economic problems that we are facing in these hard times. Imagine if we can do well in these difficult times, what we'll be able to do when times get better. Madam President, thank you very much for allowing me this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We appreciate that. We appreciate you being here. We appreciate your message. And as you said, this is a beginning dialogue, and we look forward to working with you as we get to approve a budget for the city of Richmond. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, did you need to announce the budget public hearing yet?
I believe the budget public hearing date is May 4th, 2009 at 5:00 p.m. here in the chamber. We do have a motion from Councilman Samuels.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Madam President, I move to suspend Rule 6 of the Council's Rules of Procedure for all budget-related ordinances introduced this afternoon, so that those ordinances are referred to the Council Finance Standing Committee to be reviewed pursuant to a budget review process developed by the Council and the Council Chief of Staff.
Thank you, Mr. Sanders. Is there a second?
Second.
Council discussion? Madam Clerk, do we need a public hearing on this?
No, we just need to vote on the motion.
Thank you.
Council is now voting on Councilman Samuels' motion to suspend the rules of council. That motion was seconded by Councilman Hilbert. You're voting on that motion. Mr. Connor?
Aye.
Mr. Samuels?
Aye.
Mr. Hilbert?
Aye.
Vice President?
Aye.
Mr. Jewell?
Aye.
Ms. Squire? Aye. Ms. Trammell? Aye. Mr. Tyler?
Aye.
And President Graziano.
Aye.
That motion has been adopted. Madam President and Mayor Jones, the only other item that we have this afternoon are the introductory papers.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Do you read those papers into the record? Do you need to read them into the record?
Yes, we did, and the deputy will do that.
An ordinance number 2009-50, Patron Mayor Jones, to submit a consolidated action plan, housing and community development plan, to the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development as an application for the receipt of community development block grant funds, home investment partnership funds, emergency shelter grant funds, housing opportunities for persons with AIDS funds, and CDBG economic stimulus funds from the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act of 2009 to accept funds from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development in the total amount of $9,852,274 for various projects and to reallocate and reappropriate unexpended funds in the amount of $800,000 for various projects. Council public hearing date, Monday, April 27th. A public hearing will be held on Monday, May 4th, 2009 at 5 p.m. for the following ordinances patroned by Mayor Jones.
I'd ask that everyone please, as you leave, please leave quietly because these papers need to be read into the record and the clerk needs to be heard. Thank you.
An ordinance number 2009-51 to cancel all authorized but unissued notes authorized by the City of Richmond in fiscal year 2006-2007 to authorize the issuance of general obligation equipment notes of the City of Richmond in the maximum principal amount of $7 million and to sell equipment notes to finance the acquisition of equipment. And ordinance number 2009-52 to cancel all authorized but unissued bonds authorized by the City of Richmond in fiscal years 2004 and 5 and fiscal year 2005 and 6 to authorize the issuance of general obligation public improvement bonds of the City of Richmond in the maximum principal amount of $150 million to finance the cost of school projects and general capital improvement projects of the city, and to sell such bonds for such capital improvement projects, to provide for the form, details, and payment of such bonds, and to authorize the issuance of notes of the city in anticipation of the issuance of such bonds. And ordinance number 2009-53 to authorize the issuance of notes of the City of Richmond in the maximum principal amount of $100 million in anticipation of the collection of taxes and revenues during the fiscal year 2009-2010 to sell notes in anticipation of the collection of taxes and revenue in such year. And ordinance number 2009-54 to authorize the issuance of public utility revenue bonds of the City of Richmond in the maximum principal amount of $137,722,000 to finance the cost of capital improvement projects of the gas, water, and wastewater utilities and public utilities, buildings, and facilities, including but not limited to the stores division, to sell such bonds for such capital improvement projects, to provide for the form, details, and payment of such bonds, to approve the form of supplemental indenture of trust, and to authorize the issuance of notes of the city in anticipation of the issuance of such bonds. And ordinance number 2009-55, to amend the code concerning the imposition of a permit requirement and fees for the disposal of inert solid waste at East Richmond Road landfill, and to set forth fees for it. And ordinance number 2009-56, to amend the fees set forth in the code concerning charges for transfer of solid waste and recycling by the city, to increase the charges for recycling by the city. And ordinance number 2009-57, to amend the fees set forth in the code concerning fees for residential gas service, fees for residential gas peaking service, fees for general gas service, fees for large volume general gas service, fees for transportation service, fees for municipal gas service, fees for unmetered gas light service, fees for large volume and gas sales service, fees for large volume high load factor gas sales service, and fees for natural gas vehicle gas service, to establish revised charges for such services. And ordinance number 2009-58, to amend fees set forth in the code concerning fees for residential water service, fees for commercial water service, fees for industrial water service, fees for municipal water service, fees for state and federal water service, fees for water for fire protection, and fees for water use during conservation periods, to establish revised charges for such services. And ordinance number 2009-59, to amend fees set forth in the code concerning fees for residential water service, residential wastewater service, commercial wastewater service, industrial wastewater service, state and federal wastewater service, municipal wastewater service, and for the discharge of hauled materials into designated septic receiving stations by contractors, to establish revised charges for such services. And ordinance number 2009-60, to amend the code concerning the stormwater utility, definitions, unlawful acts, adoption of rules and regulations, billing and collection of charges and interest charges on unpaid balances and delinquencies, and to establish fees for stormwater service and the disposition of funds from sale of real estate and certain insurance proceeds, and to repeal the code concerning injuring, impairing, or obstructing culverts or sewers, and obstruction of drainage in order to provide for the establishment of a stormwater utility in the city. And ordinance number 2009-61, to amend the pay plan for the purpose of revising the implementation schedule for sworn firefighters and police officers, and providing salary increases and step advancements. And ordinance number 2009-62, to amend the pay plan to provide the Commonwealth's attorney with a salary supplement of $35,710, and the Commonwealth's attorney's office with $285,088 for salary supplements. And ordinance number 2009-63, to amend the pay plan to provide the sheriff with a salary supplement of $14,370, and the sheriff's office with $3,451,252 for salary supplements. And ordinance number 2009-64, to accept the program of proposed capital improvement projects for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2009, for the 4 fiscal years thereafter, to adopt the capital budget for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2009, and to determine the means of financing the same. And ordinance number 2009-65, to appropriate and to provide funds for financing the school budget for the fiscal year commencing July 1st, 2009, and ending June 30th, 2010. And ordinance number 2009-66, to adopt the internal service fund budgets for the fiscal year commencing July 1st, 2009,